Greetings in the name of Christ. Today I want to do a video about modesty. It is a topic that I think a lot of the people who subscribe to my YouTube channel are probably pretty interested in, because it tends to go along hand in hand with the head covering. I want to talk about it because, one, I don't think people talk about it enough, but more so as a trend I've noticed. And I've noticed it particularly with some family, especially the young ones, and I know they probably don't watch any of this stuff, so it probably won't reach their ears. I wish it could, but a trend I've noticed that a lot of people seem to have is a perception that their definition of modesty is correct. And their definition of modesty quite often is a very worldly one, or what the world would define as modest. And I want to ask you guys to think about that for a minute. Is what the world would define as modest modest? I think quite a few of the people who watch this channel would say no. It is certainly not. But don't take my word for it. Not by any means. If you're a professing Christian, you should be taking the Bible's word for it. The Bible certainly tells us that we need to be modest, and that we need to be sober, chaste, keepers of home, and display shamefacedness, humility, not be ostentatious in how we are and how we dress. These are all factors that play in. It also has guidelines. Now, grant you, there's quite a few of these that fall into the Old Testament, but there's guidelines in there for what is nakedness. And that's kind of where I'm kind of going with this, is obviously the Bible says we should be modest, which to me is not displaying your nakedness and you being simply dressed, and also your modesty in your demeanor too. But the nakedness is the bit that I think our definitions get really skewed on, and it's because of the worldly definitions intermingle, and it's easy to do. When I was in high school, I thought I was pretty modest. Now that I look back on that, I'm appalled, because I used to do things like wear bikinis. That's not modest. I know a lot of people think it is, but it's really not. And why do I say that? How can I say that it's not? And the reason, or say that I'm right, I say that because I think that's what God would say, because of what His Word says. His Word gives several examples, and I'm not going to go all of the scriptures here. I'm going to encourage you to look them up. Go out and find them. You can do that. The web is a pretty powerful tool, and if you're watching me, you probably have access to it. So I encourage you to go out and research biblical modesty, or search the term biblical nakedness. Try and define, what does the Bible define as nakedness? Obviously we don't want to be naked. So a little clues and stuff that I have found, that scriptures talk about that a person needs to be covered from their shoulders to their thighs. And there's even a reference I've seen that somebody said that the Strong's Concordance referred to one of the words for thigh as even being your lower calf, not your upper thigh, when it comes to a human. I don't know, I haven't looked into that fully, but it's a thought just to keep in mind out there. The big point is to research what the Bible says. Make sure the Bible's definition of modesty is your definition of modesty, not the world's definition, because you don't want the world's, you want the Bible's. And my personal opinion is the Bible's definition of modesty is long, loose flowing garments that cover shoulders, your upper body, and they cover all of your thighs down minimally to your knees. And I think it's very, very good to err on the side of caution and go lower. That's why I wear my dresses nearly ankle length. Mid-calf is probably fine, but take that for what it's will. Don't take my word for it. Take the Bible's word for it. Research it. Look into it. there's nothing more important than you can do is take the Bible's word over the word of the world. And quite often, there's a lot of things that we have in our life that are very subjective to a person's opinion. You're going to get a lot of different opinions on what modesty means. One person may have a very, very tight garment. I've noticed there's a lot of young Christian sites that just term themselves as modest, and when I go out there and look at the clothes, I'm like, that's so not modest. At least it's not, in my opinion, and I really don't think it would be biblically modest either. I think people need to be very careful. And I'm not going to tell you absolutely what is or isn't modest. I give you, my idea of what I think it is, but ultimately what I think does not matter. It's what the Bible says. And I encourage you to go out there and search modesty, search biblical nakedness. Find out what you think God says about modesty. Do you believe God when He tells you you should be modest? Do you believe Him in the examples He gives you for how to be modest? Do you think the Word is something that we can kind of blow off there and just follow culture? I challenge you not to blow off the Word, but to go out there and dig into it and find out what is truly modest, and try to get your attire to meet up to that, and the attire of your children too. So, and of course, your husband, that's up to him what he does or doesn't do. So, but try to encourage your children to dress modestly, and certainly to do so yourself. So, take that for what it's will, and hopefully that's helpful to somebody. Have a blessed day.